Is the size of your work the minimum that can be done, which provides value to a customer, whether internal or external, which they can consume? Today's topic on this session of All Things Value Delivery Management. Hi, I'm Joshua Barnes, and small items of high value are one of the eight factors for effective value stream management that value delivery managers need to attend to. And this is in the series that I'll be doing. This is the first of these value flow factors, and I will be going through all 8 of these. So, are small items of high value being worked on? Are there delays or waiting in the workflow? Is feedback quick? Is the quality high? Is the workflow and work visible? Are there low levels of work in progress? Are people focused on one product or service? And then for the value creation structure, are people arranged in a way that will avoid delays in the workflow? Now, for most of the organizations we have an opportunity to work with, and taking a look at the value streams that exist in those organizations and the work that's flowing through them, for most of these questions, for these 8 factors, the answer would be no, right? There are almost always improvement opportunities for all of these. So for today's topic, the value flow factor, small items, what I'll start off with saying is that, the size of the work from the largest, the macro level that I'm going to kind of talk about, is really the scope, the project, the work package, whatever it might be referred to. And there's a lot of reasons why we might find that our scope is beyond the minimum needed to be able to do the work in its entirety, release that, put it into the hands of our customers, and have them actually consume it, or know that what we've done might not have the level of value or the uptake in the marketplace, or again, utilization from internal customers and employees, maybe in the organization we're working on. And then we'll know much sooner that we should probably be pivoting to something else that would be of a higher value. So why do we still struggle with this? And for Agile transformations, a lot of the organizational transformation work that we've done for quite a long period of time now with a lot of customers, one of the things that typically is included in the outcome that leadership is looking for is quicker time to market, right? So we're in this situation where the challenge is, or the perception is, it takes too long to get anything done. So if we're able to improve the efficiency of our delivery teams, right, the teams that are adopting that Agile way of working, we're going to see this huge improvement in being able to bring things to market quicker. It doesn't always happen. Actually, I would say, at least in my experience, that rarely happens, right? So if we're able to increase efficiency, even by some pretty significant amount, 10, 20, 30%, that might not be able to get us to shrink the time period of what we're trying to be able to get to market or get into, again, a situation where it can be consumed. So one of the best ways to do that is to have a smaller scope, have a smaller amount of work that we're doing, right? Because we can get things that are smaller done quicker in most cases, right? And so we see these large scopes of work, these projects. Sometimes it's a byproduct of having an annual budgeting and funding approach, right? We have ideas, we have requests that come in, and so our projects, our scopes of work, the things that get approved and funding allocated to them, is typically an aggregation of a lot of different types of functionality. So one of the things that we want to be able to see across the board with everyone, our product owners, our product managers, our team members, our stakeholders, is this relentless focus on minimums. Right. And that's one of the mindset changes that really is needed to be able to move to focusing on smaller sized work. Right. So what we find in practice, though, is that's a pretty hard thing to get uptake in. Again, a lot of times we're going to see that stakeholders have been conditioned to ask for as much as they can because they're not going to be able to get another time period or another request period, maybe to the next annual budgeting process. So then we see additional work, again, a lot of work that's pushed onto teams. And then we have a kind of a larger scope of work than is needed to be able to, again, get something in the hands of our customers added to, right? So it's like, well, I need you to do this little bit or that little bit. So one of the questions that I often get is, well, how do you sell leadership? How do you sell people in finance to change the way they're making allocate? Maybe the budget's not going to change, but the funding allocations of that budget needs to change to a much more frequent basis, right? Setting expectations, then kind of having to manage those as we move into each next, annual period. So one of the things that we've gotten a lot of success with is to be able to start painting the picture of the benefit of a smaller item. And one of the best ways I found to do that is take some of these larger quantities of work and start to try and separate some of the functionality that on its own, we can ask our stakeholders, ask the product owner, product manager, stakeholders, if we were able to do this smaller quantity of work, would that be a benefit? And that's the idea of the minimum business increment. What is the smallest thing we can do to be able to release that and provide value and to get it consumed? It's not just about releasing it. It's all about that value, whatever we're working on getting consumed. Now, business value or value in particular, there's a lot of different things that come into play. There's increased revenue, increased transactions, decreased customer acquisition costs, keeping up with the competition. But we also have things like keeping us in compliance, or if we're in a regulated industry, things that we have to do. It's about making sure we have adequate levels of quality for our customers. So there's a lot of things that go into what would be valuable. And when we have smaller items, we're typically able to identify that much easier than if it's a big sort of aggregated clump of stuff. So some of the things that we typically are going to be able to use as a way to sort of paint the picture of why this is important is, for one, part of what we're trying to get with an agile or lean way of working is a reduction in the feedback cycle, right? So we want a quicker feedback cycle. And the smaller the work size, the faster it can be completed and the quicker we're going to be able to get feedback on that. And this is at all levels. It's not just at the project level or the minimum business increment level or the epic level or whatever larger quantity of scope we're talking about. We're trying to have this relentless focus on minimums across everything that we're doing, right? So quicker feedback from team member to team member, quicker feedback from a team member to their product owner, a product owner to subject matter experts or stakeholders in the organization, quicker feedback between teams if we're in a situation with dependencies or impacts that we're having to manage. And then ultimately, we want a quicker feedback cycle from us to our customers. And again, I'm going to keep reiterating that can be an external customer or an internal customer, depending on the type of product or service that we're working on. So quicker feedback cycle is one of the benefits of smaller work. Now, shorter time to market. So the smaller the work size that we're doing, the shorter the delivery timeline, which is going to improve our speed to market. Again, being one of the more prevalent drivers in these agile transformations, right? We're not just going to be able to significantly, in most cases, reduce that time period by just adopting a new way of working, right? But by looking at some of the factors that improve our flow of value that we're able to deliver, and again, one of them, the topic of today, something that is much smaller, a smaller batch of work, we're going to be able to do that in a much more effective way. So now, how do we determine a small item of high value? Well, if we have very discrete things that we're working on, right? Again, we might have a scope of work that has a lot of enhancements, a lot of functionality within a product that we're working on, or within a number of products that maybe are being enhanced, right? So we have to do enhancements across 2, 3, 4, however many products there are to have that value be able to be utilized or again, consumed. So when we're looking at very specific, the smallest thing we can possibly do that can be consumed, that gives us an opportunity to move away from these sort of jam-packed project scopes to things that we can have a different type of discussion on and have a very different way of measuring. So high value versus low value is another one of the ways that we're able to, again, paint the picture of why we're able to move to this smaller batch of work. So another thing is decrease work in progress, right? So when we've got this larger scope, this larger batch of work, well, the time frame's a lot longer. This is where we typically are going to see additional things that are being pulled in or pushed on top of our workflow, right? It's seen as little things, but these little things add up to oftentimes a lot of context switching. They might not be the most important thing that we're potentially able to work on, right? A byproduct of more work in progress is oftentimes then we're in a situation where we're starting to kind of be a firefighter, right? We're just being more reactive. Whoever's screaming the loudest, or again, whoever's bringing the most focus on their particular work, sometimes that's what teams end up then focusing on, which delays the stuff that is of higher value. So by having smaller work items, right, we're going to also enable decisions around what's the next thing that we're going to pull into the workflow and work on. So we're able to have an opportunity for some of this maybe new or just uncovered or discovered work to then be really evaluated in comparison to everything else we were potentially planning to do, and what's going to be not only the most important for what we'd be doing next, but that we're actually capable of pulling into the workflow, and we've got the adequate capacity and budget and everything that's needed to actually get that work done and get it consumed. The other thing that we've got with these larger quantities of work is, again, they're typically all wrapped into these annual budgeting processes or these longer horizon planning cycles. So by having smaller quantities of work, a smaller batch size, smaller scope size, we're also able to see that we're able to do planning much more frequently, right? We're able to make a determination of what's the next thing we should be working on? What's the next thing that will be the most impactful? The thing that has a higher value in comparison to the other work, as well as having a better understanding of the capacity within that value stream to be able to get that work started and completed in as efficient and timely manner as possible. So those are the main things that we kind of take a look at and we communicate and train and coach value delivery managers on, as well as how then they're bringing that into fruition at organizations to be able to get these larger things, again, sort of decomposed in the smaller work that we can do. The minimum business increment strategy, I've done a few live streams on that, and I've got a few articles that I've put out both here on LinkedIn as well as on our learning platform. That is one of the best strategies that we've seen to date that really helps to identify the smallest thing we can do. Another thing we want to talk about is the concept of the minimum marketable feature. I actually like to sort of rename that, or kind of more talk about the minimum consumable feature, right? So if we've got the minimum scope of work, the minimum new features or capabilities we're working on, what is the minimum from a feature or epic perspective that we're able to do? Because we can always do more, but if we do more, and again, there's not an uptake, it's not providing value, our customers don't necessarily like that new functionality, it's not doing whatever outcome we were looking for, then we've wasted a lot of our very precious time and capacity, and again, budget of the organization. So that relentless focus on minimum size of our work package, again, our minimum business increment, minimum of what's within that minimum consumable feature, as well as what's the minimum for each one of those stories or steps in the process, whether it's a primary, the primary behavior, primary path, or some of the alternative paths or again, air handling conditions that we might see within our business process. So what is the minimum across all of that? And let's see, I'll check to see if we've got any questions here. Yeah, hello, Alduba. So if you have any questions or thoughts as far as strategies for moving towards working on a minimum, something that you've seen work well for you and in your organization or customer you're working at, please put it down in the chat on LinkedIn, and I'll chime in with any questions that additionally might be asked, and or anything that might be something we can pull into one of the future sessions on the remaining 7 factors that I'm going to cover. Thank you all for attending live today, as well as for any of you that are watching this on replay. And I'll see you on the next episode of All Things Value Delivery Management.